with all that rain happening outside, I kid you not, it's been raining for the past, it seems like 24 hours, on and off, on and off. On this damp, cool, rainy day, I am bringing together Grandma's dal and dumpling soup with a little surprise ingredient. She never used this, but man, I love me some salted pigtail. Stay tuned, you're gonna love this one. You'll need a big pot. There's no question about that. A tablespoon and a half of olive oil, and this is very simple. It's one of them soups that Grandma just rocked with minimal ingredients, and it just came out spectacular. There's no two ways about it. That is a large onion, and I'm just smashing some garlic with the side of my knife here, and we've got 5 cloves of garlic. My heat is on medium right now, and this is the sort of the base for this wicked soup. The other thing is we want a little Scotch bonnet pepper. It's totally optional. If you can handle the heat, by all means do so. I'm using half of a Scotch bonnet pepper, a lot of heat in that. Just going to give that a quick stir, move that around. I'm going to turn my heat down to low, because I don't want to burn anything here. That garlic will have a tendency to want to burn. So I'm going to turn the heat down, and I'm going to show you 3 other ingredients which are key to this soup. And those 3 ingredients are salted pigtail. Now, my grandmother never ate pork, so salted pigtail was never in this dal and dumpling soup. However, she did use salted cod. Today, I'm using salted pigtail, and how we did this was we cut it up into pieces. You need a very heavy cleaver, and this salted pigtail, by the way, not just fresh pigtail. Salted pigtail, you soak it in water, cover it, soak it in water, dump that water out, then you cover it back with water, put it on the stove, bring it up to a boil, allow it to simmer for about half an hour. It still won't be as tender as we want it, but it will happen in the soup. The reason why we boil it is to remove most of that salt. You will notice near the end, I will taste the soup and maybe add salt. Sometimes there's enough salt left back in here to fully season the dish. Salted pigtails, remember it's salted pigtails. The other key ingredient, a dal and dumpling soup means there must be dal, and this is yellow split peas dal, which I already washed. We've got 2 cups of that. And the other thing I like is Caribbean green seasoning. This here, if you're new to Caribbean cooking, this here is a puree or a blend of all the herbs, along with garlic and seasoning peppers and all that kind of stuff that we like using in just about everything we cook. And it remains in the fridge. I do mine with olive oil, and it retains the vibrancy of the color, the flavor, and everything of the herbs. So let's jump back to the pot now. In goes that pre-cooked salted pigtail. We're going to go in with a heaping tablespoon of that, let's be generous, 2 tablespoons of that Caribbean green seasoning. We want some black pepper in there. Now remember, we already have that Scotch bonnet pepper in there, so be mindful of that heat. And remember, when you're working with Scotch bonnet peppers and any hot pepper, wash your hands immediately after with soap and water. You don't want to go to the bathroom, touch your cocolux, and then you're in problems. I'm encouraging that. Since the yellow split peas or dal will take a long time to cook, this is where 2 things are going to happen. We're going to put it now, so that's going to break down and cook down as we want it to, and it's going to help the salted pigtail really get nice and tender as well too while we slowly cook this. Going to give that a stir, make sure everything's incorporated nicely, and we need braising liquid to allow this to become nice and tender. And that braising liquid is coconut milk, and you'll need about 3 cups of that coconut milk, and water. We're going to top it up with water. You know, I spoke earlier there about key ingredients in this soup, and the coconut milk is a must. We lovingly knew this soup, or we referred to this soup when we were kids growing up, as Ma's white soup. Not dal and dumpling, but white soup. As later on we found out she called it her dal and dumpling soup. So that coconut milk is a must. You're going to bring this up to a boil now. and you're going to reduce it to a simmer. And you're going to let that go until the peas start falling apart and breaking up. And you're going to have to add some more water to this. We didn't add any salt, remember that. But the whole idea here now is to low and slow and let that just keep blub blub away. It's been going now for a little over an hour and 20 minutes. It's reduced considerably. And you notice how thick it got. All those peas have melted away and nice and thick. The pigtails are getting nice and soft, and that's releasing a lot of nice salty goodness flavor in there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you saw how fatty that is, so it's not necessarily healthy for you. Turn the heat up to medium, and here I was going to go in with 5 potatoes and 1 carrot. Now, when my grandma would make this soup, she would not use potatoes, she would use Eddos. And if you know anything about Eddos, it's one of them more starchy, and again, it helps make the soup even more white. And I told you guys, it's the white soup we knew it as. We're going to bring that back up to a boil now and let that cook, and now we're going to start making the dumplings. So we got the split peas, we got the coconut milk, we got that salted pigtail. Like I said, she used to use salted cod instead. We need the dumplings. So let's make those dumplings now. What I will do, I will add just a tiny bit more water in here, a couple cups more water in here, just so we have more liquid, because when that flour dumpling go in there, it's going to thicken up even further, man. The flour dumplings, pretty simple. 2 cups of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of brown sugar, and that's just golden brown sugar, and just a tiny pinch of salt, maybe about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We're just going to give that a little mix. And this is as simple and as basic as flour dumplings. Well, I guess flour dumplings is meant to be basic. We're going to add warm water, and that's just a bit more water. And I'm just going to keep working this dough until it comes together. Then I'm going to go in with my hands and knead it for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. But first of all, we need to get this going here. And if you find that it's a bit too wet, you can always add a bit more flour. So I'm just going to go in with my hand now and just pull everything together. And then we're going to allow it. You want something, I like something a bit wet, but it's totally up to you. I need a little bit more flour in there. It's a little too wet to my liking. So in goes some more flour, and I'm just going to work that in. A nice soft, I mean, if you like harder dumplings, stiffer dumplings, you can certainly do that. I like it just soft and falling apart almost. So I'm going to knead this for another 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll allow it to rest for about 5 minutes before we make the dumplings. I've had a damp paper towel over the dough there. And we're just going to put a little bit of flour down. We'll take that dough and break it into 2 so it's easier to work with. Just gonna work that down just a little bit more. Put that there, a bit more flour. And here's where you need some of the flour, the rolling pin too. And we're just gonna roll this out as if you're making a sada roti or something. You want it flat or a pizza. Some of you who are not familiar with what a sada roti is, and you want this really thin as you can go without ripping it, because as it goes into that hot liquid, it will get thicker. So I'm just going to keep working that, until it's nice and even with thickness all the way through. Got a beautiful thickness all the way through. And now you can use a knife. I might just so happen I have my favorite pizza cutter here. I brought this back from Italy a couple years ago. And we're just gonna go like so, to ribbons. And you want your dumplings bite-sized pieces. And that's gonna go into the hot soup now. And we're gonna repeat the entire process. It's been 20 minutes since we added the potato and carrot in there, so it's time to add the flour dumplings directly to the pot here, and then I'm going to give it a little stir just to make sure they're sitting and floating and sinking in that lovely dal base. Man, I'm telling you, man, one of the best soups you'll ever have. I kid you not. It's been 5 minutes since I added the last of the flour dumplings in there. And notice that thick, luscious soup we have. It's silky. All of that split peas, that yellow split peas, that dal has just, yo, man, it's just doing wonderful things in here. We are done. We are done. Now, here's where you're going to personalize things. I want you to pay attention to the thickness here. This will thicken up a lot further once it cools down. So you may want to add some more water in here, bring it back up to a boil, and then shut the stove off. Taste it for salt. Remember, we didn't add any salt whatsoever, so this is where you're going to taste it for salt now. I didn't have to add any. The salted pigtails did its job. And finally, the last thing I like doing, I like to brighten it up a little bit, and that is courtesy of some chopped parsley. Something Grandma never did, but Grandma, she had her ways, you know what I mean? Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com, rainy day. I'm just gonna tuck into this thing here, boy. And here's the thing, the next day, the dumplings, they go even softer, like little pillows, man. They go nice and soft. So if you have leftovers, man, oh man, the next day you're gonna say, Uncle Chris, thank you for making me aware of this soup and the brilliance of leftovers. Well, I enjoy all of day, alright? Let me go and eat my soup and go and count raindrops or something. Who knows?